when you have agents doing actual risk determination based on money laundering indicators, when a FINTRAC examiner shows up and it's looking through your records and says, hey, why are all of your clients low risk? You now have a good answer to that question. On the CREA forms, you don't have a good answer to that question right now. The guy who puts in new floors and tells you it costs $100,000, you know that's wrong, but nobody else will have insight into that. And I know that none of us got into real estate to become detectives.
Yeah.
But I don't think any of us got into real estate hoping to help make our society worse.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to In the House podcast. I'm your co-host, Tony Singh.
And I'm Jenny Woon.
And we have a special colleague with us today in person in studio, Greg Dent, who is a fellow realtor of 13 years and founder of Really Trusted, a streamlining paperwork app or platform for realtors. Welcome, Greg. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to chat with you guys about everything.
We're so excited to hear more about what you're working on now. Just to kick us off, what would you say, Greg, is your superpower?
I think my superpower is creatively solving problems and finding ways to solve problems that work for everybody in the experience. And if I look at both my work as a realtor and my work with Really Trusted, it's been about finding creative problems, and that's what drives me. That's what I love to do. On the real estate side, I think most of your listeners are going to come from the real estate side, so are going to understand how there's simple transactions. You get a first-time buyer, there's a bit of a simplicity to that because it's almost always going to follow an education path and then an education around the market and then moving them through the process. And those are fun, and I find a lot of value in them. But I think the ones that are really interesting are the difficult ones, the ones that don't have an obvious solution to them. And that's where I really enjoy it. And that's where that's where Really Trusted has inspired me in terms of allowing me to grow and build things that are different.
Yeah, that's perfect. So maybe share with our listeners your background in tech and real estate and what Really Trusted is.
Sure. Yeah. So my background in tech is not particularly deep. I've always dabbled with things as they come out. I was on MS-DOS as a kid, learning how to use.
I remember that.
Yeah, like the CD / all that kind of stuff. I did that, but I never got fully deep into it. And it's been helpful to have enough of an underpinning to understand that. But honestly, most of the tech side of Really Trusted comes from my brother, who went really, really deep on that stuff. I don't even understand most of what he's doing most of the time enough, but I understand that I can say, hey, look, I want it to do this, and he'll figure out how to do that, both from an architecture and from a programming point of view. My real estate side of things, I've been a realtor for just over 13 years now, and I've been doing that as part of a team for the last 11 years, or most of that time has been on a team. The value of that to me has been that I've really understood the importance of consumers and the importance of being client-centric. It's one of the core values we've written for Really Trusted is being client-centric, but it's also something that really needs to drive, I think, every realtor's business. And I think ultimately, this belief I've got, and it's really kind of crystallized for me in the last handful of months, is that the consumer is always going to win. Always. In the long term, the consumer is going to come out with what they want out of the equation. And I say that because it's something we've learned on as a realtor, but I also believe that it's true, and that every industry that doesn't get that is ultimately going to lose. Every business that doesn't get that's ultimately going to lose. And I think it's something that we've put at the forefront of all the decisions we make with Really Trusted, and as we build things out, is making sure we realize who the consumer is. And for us, we've got a number of different answers to that. And we'll talk about actual real estate clients, but then realtors are partly our clients, and then brokerages are partly our clients.
Mhm.
And meeting all of those needs in a way that makes sense has been something we've really thought through carefully as we build things.
Mm-hmm. So share with us the conversation that you had with your brother, how you came up with this really trusted company. I want to hear, you're laughing right now. I'm wondering if there's a funny story behind this.
Yeah, I mean, it is a funny story. It's when we started this, at no point in the first, I don't know, 3 or 4 months did I think this was a company. To me, this was just solving the problem. And going back to the original part of Really Trusted, this was all about the BCFSA disclosure forms.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we lost control of the Real Estate Council, as you guys remember, 5-ish years ago.
Mhm.
And we had all those new terrible forms. And
Thank you for saying that, Greg. Thank you for your candor.
Although I kind of feel like the July 17th, the DMOP form is going to be a good one.
I have, that's an interesting debate.
Okay, let's get into that
Okay.
later.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Because I don't disagree, but I think there's some better. Anyhow, yeah, we'll come back.
Better
to that.
methods.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
When we lost control of BCFSA, those forms created a challenge for all of our workflows, and I think we all
Absolutely.
Right?
It was
Like,
awful.
the disclosure expected remuneration in particular. I remember in those first couple of months receiving offers on our listings, and there was this one moment we had a listing on Grant Street, and I was sitting at that park. There's the park on
Yeah.
Grant on First there,
Mhm.
and we got the offer in. It had like a 2-hour response period, and I was sitting in front about to do a showing, and I'm looking at my clock, going, I actually don't have time to create the disclosure form
Yeah.
to send to my client so that I'm allowed to have the conversation with my client
Mm.
and get a response back while doing this other showing.
Yeah.
So that was the moment where I was like, okay, we need a better way of dealing with this. And so originally Really Trusted was actually just that, the DORTS, the disclosure of expected remuneration. We call it the DERP. That's
Yeah.
our own fun thing. And just making it easier for agents to comply on that part of things.
Makes sense.
So that's, and I chuckle because honestly, I called Daniel, and Daniel's my brother. I called Daniel. I said, look, like, I think there's a way we could make this easier with software. And he's like, yeah,
He's a tech guy, right?
for sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but this is going to be more complicated than you realize. And I was like, no, like, I just need it to like take in the information, put it onto a PDF. How hard can that be? Right.
Mm.
And he was like, yeah, no, it's way more complicated than you realize. And so we stood up our first beta within about a month and a half of that. Like by August 1st, we had a beta version. We had like 100 users sign up through the Facebook groups just to kind of test it out.
And also, everyone else was feeling your pain.
Yeah.
We also felt that pain.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I knew that's what was interesting is the pretty quick response from Facebook groups of 100 people was like, oh, maybe there is something that we should be doing here that's going to add value in the medium and long term.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. And so what's the structure of your company now? Is it just you and your brother?
No, we have a total of 5 people, including my brother and I. So we have a full-time, yeah, sorry, that's right. We have a full-time person here. He's our director of client experience. So he often mans our support desk. He makes some sales calls for me. He helps people through challenges. He does a lot of our training for brokerages. So he's full-time. We have a full-time programmer based out of Poland, of all places.
Wow.
And he's straight development work on kind of mostly focused on future modules. And so one of the things we'll have it launched in a very short period of time is a new corporate ID module. So helping agents through the process of IDing corporations properly for FinTrack.
Ooh, that's really exciting, Greg.
I don't think anybody's ever described FinTrack as exciting, but thank you. I appreciate it.
I know I'm a bit of a geek, but that specific component is very exciting.
Yeah. And like I'm being flippant about it. I agree it is exciting. And I think there's a lot of value to it. I just know that when realtors hear the word FinTrack, it's like, oh, yeah, okay, great. This is not going to be fun. So I'm very cognizant of the fact where FinTrack fits into the landscape of the real estate industry. But I do think that going back to like our foundation story, really what I'm trying to do with all of the things we do is make it easier for realtors. And so the disclosure forms were an obvious version of that. The next modules were released around IDing clients either remotely or in person
Yeah.
were the next obvious step in that. And that North Star has been making it easier for agents,
hmm
ensuring that clients still have a good experience. And we've layered into that, ensuring that brokerages get value out of the experience as well.
So I like how you've layered in the consumer client-centric part as well. That's really important, right? Because we all want to be compliant. We would like our job to be easier. And also, sometimes we forget what kind of client experience that would be like.
Totally.
So maybe before we talk about how your platform works, could you share with us something new that you're working on right now? You mentioned something about an academy.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. The training platform was we launched Really Trusted Academy about 2 months ago, and it's an online training platform available for brokerages who want to sign on for it. And I mean, look, if there was a realtor who really wanted to sign on for it, we'd happily set them up with it. But again, FinTrack probably not going to be a huge seller for realtors. The challenge we see is that brokerages have an obligation to train their agents on FinTrack.
Mhm.
And most brokerages either don't have the capacity to build that out well, don't have the knowledge to build that out well, or in the cases they do, they then have the additional challenge of getting all of their agents to do it. And normally that takes the shape of like a sales meeting a year where it's just mandatory and everybody has to show up. Or we're going to talk about it for 15 minutes at every sales meeting.
Mhm.
And that's just an administrative nightmare for a brokerage to be compliant on. And agents don't like it either. Now they have to be talking about this as at a mandatory sales meeting. You say the word mandatory to a bunch of realtors, it's never good.
Yeah, no. I at our brokerage we do February FinTrack, so that's the yearly reminder. This
Right.
is how you fill out the FinTrack properly. I would probably have to agree that it's probably the toughest to get people to attend. It's pulling teeth to get them to be interested in this particular topic.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not expecting agents to turn around and be excited about it at any point. But to me, having it as an online training platform, and to finish the story of what Academy is, because I got sidetracked there. Academy comes preloaded with a FinTrack for real estate agents course that we've developed. It requires a brokerage to customize 2 pieces because that's actually part of the regulations is that it needs
The
to be
protocols,
customized.
right?
Yeah, it has to be customized. And so
Mhm.
it's who does ROFRs and all those things for your brokerage. But beyond that, it's off the shelf, ready to go for a brokerage. And the nice thing about it from an agent's point of view is that they can access it online whenever it makes sense for them. So if you happen to be up at 4:30 in the morning every day, you could go do not to point fingers, but you could go do a couple of modules at that point. Or if you wanted to just pound through it in an hour, and you could go do it in an hour, and that would be totally fine too. But it allows the agents to access the training when it makes sense in their schedule, in their life.
And so do you have to be signed up with Really Trusted to also sign up for Trusted Academy?
No, it's a different product offering. And so brokerages can choose to sign up for one or both. And there's obviously a preferred rate if they sign up for both and all the rest. But no, it is a separate product, and we intend to make them available as separate products. There's obviously some overlap. We're going to talk about the app in our training. And if you're using the app, it's much easier to be compliant with the training. So there's a bunch of value there, but there's no obligation. And it really depends on what a brokerage is looking for from us.
Yeah.
Because the app is it's interesting. The app we can sell to individual agents. They get some value out of it. There's a bunch of value that the brokerage gets that's kind of a little more hidden. And we can talk about that in a few seconds maybe. But the Academy platform, again, I'll be very surprised if any agent signs up individually.
Yeah.
But I think it does, going back to that consumer-centric part of things for us, if we look at the realtor side of the consumer experience, we wanted to make sure it was valuable to them. They're not going to be excited about it, but it's something they need to do, and it gives them a better way of doing it at least. And it gives the brokerage a lot of value because now you can actually just do your training in an automated way. You as a compliance officer can see who's done what, who's done what at least. And then at an examination, you can say, yeah, this is how we do our training. It's completely documented and we have a full record of it.
Oh, you mean when the auditors come?
Yeah, when the FINTRAC examiners come, which we're seeing a whole heck
gotcha.
of a lot of.
They
yeah.
just
Yeah, the spot checks.
yeah.
So these are self-paced videos.
Yeah.
And are they PDP credited?
We're in the process of doing that right now. We've BCRA is going through the process of accrediting it. So I don't know. We
Okay.
hope to get accreditation.
So, Greg, could you walk us through the Really Trusted platform from the perspective of a real estate agent?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the app, the platform on the app side of things is primarily accessed. Actually, I don't think it's primarily. It's accessed wherever an agent wants it to be. It's on a mobile phone, it's on a tablet, it's on a computer.
And Android and Apple. is good.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Google Play Store, Apple App Store, you name it. Browser that has access to the internet, you're good to go.
Mhm.
The experience, and I think for most agents, and just to give you some perspective, we're across the country. We have something like 430 brokerages using the system. We have subscriptions with associations in various places, subscriptions with brokerages, a handful of individual subscriptions these days. We've really focused more on those larger brokerage and association relationships. But for an agent, their experience of it is going to be a really easy workflow of whatever they're trying to do. So for the most part, that's going to be creating an ID record. We give agents two different ways of doing that. If they're in person, they can just literally scan. There's a barcode on the back of your driver's license that
Oh,
I know.
I didn't know that.
It's funny how often I'll do that in training. People are like, what?
Yeah, I
and then-
saw your video. I watched your 90-second video. I'm like, there's a barcode on her driver's license.
And then you pulled
Wow.
out your driver's license. You're like, oh, wait, it's right here.
Wow, guys, mind blown.
It has my credit card information. It has my SIN
Does it?
number.
Does it
No,
have all
I don't.
that?
I don't.
Okay.
No, it
I've never
actually has
scanned it.
very little information, but it has enough information to be useful for you because now, as an agent, if you scan that, you have all of the information you need from the card. It has the expiry, the birth date, the driver's license number, the address, the legal name. So when you ID your clients using our system, you scan that barcode. And when I do this with my clients, I scan the barcode. I then hand them back their card and I continue to have a regular conversation with my client because that's what I'm sitting in front of my
Rather
client to
than
do.
handwriting.
Writing it
Right?
out.
And I'll
Yeah.
go home later
Okay.
and fill out the rest of the form.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
I do normally ask them if they're a politically exposed person or the head of an international organization because I don't know
good
that
for you.
otherwise. But
Yeah, for sure.
but other than that,
Yeah.
the rest of the form, I don't need to be like in front of them filling it out. And so I hand them back the card. I ask them the one question and we go back to talking about listing their home or buying or whatever it is that conversation's about, because that's why I'm sitting in front of my client. I want to be able to talk with them about what they want to be doing here. That's the value a realtor brings to that conversation. And I don't want the FINTRAC form to be in the way of that. And so from an in-person point of view, that's pretty cool and pretty useful for a realtor. And then I'll go home and I'll fill out the rest of the form. And when I fill out the rest of the form, it's going to be submitted to the brokerage automatically for me through our system. They're hidden in that workflow is some of the brokerage value. For a lot of agents, when you're thinking about FINTRAC, you're thinking about that 4-page CREA form with the 2-page PAPIO form.
Mm.
That's a lot of people are thinking that, or the brokerage has created their own form and it's slightly different, but it's not vastly different, has been what I've learned through the conversations we've had. When brokerages sign on to our platform, they get the opportunity to make some policy decisions. And then for agents who are using it, that just becomes part of that agent workflow.
Mhm.
And the policy decisions are really around providing brokerages a better answer to, and this is going to get really FINTRAC policy, and I apologize.
No, it's okay.
This is where all your agents are going to turn off and be like, really? FINTRAC? Come on. But
Hey, brokers, listen up.
yeah, exactly. So, agents, sorry, here we go. But the risk determination piece of the CREA form is, in my opinion, is really poorly done.
Mm.
And I've chatted with CREA about this, and really they're kind of stuck in this position where they have to provide a form for everybody, and they can't do that effectively in a good FINTRAC policy point of view. We have the luxury of not having to serve every business model that's out there.
Mhm.
So when we created our version of the FINTRAC ID records, we were able to put in some actual anti-money laundering risk factors
Mm.
that an agent goes through. And it's not adding a huge burden. It adds 5 seconds to the process for
Mhm.
them. But it's criteria that they should be on the lookout for. Is the client physically not present? Does the client own a cash intensive business? Have they tried to obfuscate the source of the funds? Some really obvious things that agents,
They don't know.
yeah,
Mhm.
but they can see and they can observe.
Mm.
And I'm going down this path in a little bit more detail because this is where the brokerages who have signed on get the most value. And this is where, so the agent, let me finish out the agent experience. Agent completes the rest of the form, whether they're using our version or the Creo version of the form. Again, that's mandated by the brokerage. So the agent experience is that they have a quicker process of creating the form.
Mhm.
The other part of the agent experience we've built in that we started doing in April 2020 is the remote verification. And we launched that, if you remember, March was a bit of a crazy month, March 2020.
Mhm.
And with the shutting down of the world, we realized that doing verification remotely would be really valuable. And it had been something that had been on our radar since October of the year before when FINTRAC had released the guidance around that. And we thought we should rush that out the door. So our remote verification allows you as an agent, even now that COVID's gone and the exemptions related to COVID are gone, allows you to ID your clients who aren't physically in front of you while remaining compliant with FINTRAC, but more importantly, making sure that you're dealing with the actual person you think you're dealing with.
Mm.
Our system generates the email out to the consumer. Consumer gets a really easy workflow where they're going to take a picture of their own ID front and back and a selfie. And then our system's going to process that. So when you as an agent get the email back from our system, I don't want to call it artificial intelligence because that's not really accurate, but our system has already verified the data to make sure, A, that the ID is current, valid, and authentic, and B, to make sure that the person presenting the ID using facial recognition matches the ID that's been presented. So we're running the 2 checks that are required of agents when they're accepting ID for people who aren't physically present.
Mm-hmm.
And from a consumer point of view, that's fantastic. I've been using it, like I say, for 3 years now, I guess. And as a consumer, it means that you want to write an offer. Like, here's my classic example. I go on tour with people early in the process, thinking that they're not going to write an offer. And then they call me 3 hours later. Hey, Greg, we actually want to write an offer.
Yeah.
Hey, I need to ID you all of a sudden. In a pre this technology world, to be compliant, you should go to your client at that point in time and ID them in person. And now I can just send them an email through our system and have the confidence that it's going to be verified properly. The alternative that I know agents do, and it pains me to hear it still at this point, but is that agents will get their clients to text them or email them a picture of the ID.
Mhm.
And that really concerns me. If you look at all of the fraud cases that happened in Ontario back in December, January of this year, all of them, without exception, all of them, the realtor and or the lawyer had accepted ID entirely electronically without any sort of verification. And I just don't think that realtors want to be involved in that. I know that realtors, as a community, I believe that realtors are trying to do good. And taking the easy path by accepting ID without the verification puts you in such a precarious position. I just can't even begin to imagine why a realtor would choose to use that, particularly when there's a really easy way that we've now made available to agents. So that was a really long-winded answer to how the realtor experiences the platform.
No, it makes sense.
But I think it highlights some of the reasons that agents are starting to use the platform.
Yeah, and which comes to the question I was going to ask was, what are some of the top things you see agents struggling with? And you've answered a lot of that. Maybe I'll kind of change the question a little bit in terms of how has the experience with the, not the consumer, because your consumer is the agent, but how about the buyer and the seller? Like, have they seen, like, would you know if there's any difference in the service or experience?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think where that becomes really useful for a consumer is that, particularly this remote verification piece. If you're a consumer buying a house in Vancouver and you're based in Toronto, now as an agent, I don't have to go find a mandatory and then explain to you why this random person is coming to your house to look at your ID in the middle of a day, 3 days later. I can just go through a process online. That's a way better experience. And that's actually just true even for a consumer. That's even true for a consumer who's based in Vancouver. you know, consumers go through their lives and they're trying to buy a home, additional administrative things like having to be ID'd, they don't, they're not looking forward to that.
Right.
They're going to do it because they have to. But
Mm-hmm.
if we can make that process easier so that they can do it late at night after they've put the kids to bed or in the middle of their workday, if that works better for them or whatever, that's a better consumer experience too.
Yeah, no, great points.
Mm-hmm.
Greg, from the perspective of, Greg, from the perspective of the agent, what are the 3 biggest benefits of using your platform? You've touched on most of them, I think, but specifically as a managing broker, maybe let's speak to that because I think a lot of the salespeople don't understand the requirements on the brokerage and managing broker for compliance with FINTRAC.
I completely agree with that for sure. I think before I move to the brokerage side, the last thing I think that agents really appreciate out of our system is that the form that they're going to get out of our system is always complete. You're not able to miss a tick or miss a date or whatever. The form actually won't be generated until you've answered the questions.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to Really Trusted, I may have been guilty of this myself, where 3 weeks after I've put this deal together, my conveyancing department reaches out and say, hey, you forgot the tick in the third party section. I'm like, really? You guys couldn't have just ticked that for me? And they obviously can't. But that that pain for realtors and brokerages goes away completely on our system.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the first hint you get at the brokerage benefits, but it's also, I think, an agent benefit because now I'm not going to hear again about that missing date or whatever. The other value that's unlocked because we're doing this properly is agents can go back and create another ID record for their client sometime in the future if they have properly ID'd them before. If you look at the FINTRAC regs, you don't have to have current valid ID every time you work with somebody. You just have to at the beginning. And we treat our clients in our system, we treat them as an account essentially. So if I've previously worked with somebody 2 years ago and I ID'd them and they had valid ID at that point, I don't have to ID them again. And I can go into Really Trusted and create a new ID record for them, which is pretty cool because then I don't have to go through that whole process. I'll still have to answer some questions, PEP.io and third party, but I don't have to go through the IDing process again, which means the consumer doesn't even have to be involved anymore, which is great. Shifting over to the brokerage side of things, and I've kind of dabbled through some of this already, but the completeness of the forms is helpful. I know that every compliance officer or administrator I've talked to has somebody in their office who's spending just a heck of a lot of time going through every PDF to make sure it's complete. That's mind-numbing and terrible work, and I feel terrible for the people who have to do it. They just don't have to anymore on our system. So that's pretty nice. I think far more importantly, and where we're getting to a place that is significantly valuable for brokerages, is this policy framework I've talked about, this risk determination that along with the risk determination comes the business relationship monitoring bundle. And I'll talk about both of those separately. But when you have agents doing actual risk determination based on money laundering indicators, when a FINTRAC examiner shows up and it's looking through your records and says, hey, why are all of your clients low risk? You now have a good answer to that question. On the CREA forms, you don't have a good answer to that question right now. And if you're using the CREA forms, brokers, this is your warning. If you're using the CREA forms, your answer to why are all your clients low risk is, well, they're all Canadian citizens physically present or Canadian citizens not physically present or foreign citizens physically present. There's 1 or 2 others in there, but they're all low risk. And those aren't money laundering indicators. And so a FINTRAC examiner is going to say, well, you've ticked them as low risk, but what do you actually know about these people? Are you actually paying attention to what we think you should be paying attention to? And by and large, the answer is no. And the risk determination we're doing is hugely important to that. And what FINTRAC examiners have said coming out of examinations for brokerages who had some forms prior to us and some forms after was all the forms prior, we want to go further into these files. But all the forms after, we're happy with these because we know that you're actually paying attention to some actual money laundering criteria here. So from a brokerage point of view, that gives you a really defensible position at a FINTRAC examination. It might be that all of your clients are still low risk. That's possible.
Yeah.
I actually think as an industry, we'd do much better if we identified some medium and high risk clients occasionally. My classic examples, I'm currently working with a couple of people who own a restaurant, who own actually a series of restaurants. Well, guess what? Their businesses are cash intensive.
Mhm.
They should have a higher risk rating. And on my forms, I've identified that they are a higher risk of potentially money laundering. Now, I don't
Mhm.
think they're money laundering. I'm not filing a suspicious transaction report. FINTRAC doesn't need to know about it. But if a FINTRAC examiner were to come look at our records, they're going to see that we were paying attention to this client
Mm.
because we identified that this was a potential for money laundering, and we've rightly flagged that appropriately within our systems.
Mm.
So I think that the risk determination piece is really important, and we're seeing that come out at examinations. The business relationship monitoring piece is equally important. And is equally a huge challenge for brokerages. Just to kind of lay the context, because I still get into debates with compliance officers as recently as 2 weeks ago around what a business relationship is and what you have to do.
Yeah, it's a bit unclear.
Yeah, it is. I'll give you my answer to that question is that as a brokerage, you're in a business relationship with everybody from the moment you work with them for the next 5 years. And whether you like that or not, and whether that's true for our industry or not, doesn't really matter, because that's how FINTRAC views it. I acknowledge that the nature of our business is much more transactional and less relationship, but that doesn't currently matter to FINTRAC. So the next step of that is, when you're in a business relationship, you have an obligation to monitor that relationship periodically and do something to record what you've done to monitor that. And that's where the pain comes for a brokerage. Your conveyancing staff at any brokerage, whatever deals you're processing a month, that's your capacity. You don't have a conveyancer sitting around to do something proactively 3 years from now. That's a ridiculous burden on your resources. And the brokerage model is tough enough as it is as a business. Adding an additional staff member just doesn't make sense. So what we've done is, all of our business relationships start in our system. We start a clock based on what the compliance officer wants. How often you want that relationship reviewed, you tell us: 2 years, 3 years, 1 year, whatever, doesn't matter. And we're going to generate out an email, actually 3 emails out to the agent prior to whatever deadline you've set, asking them to do a survey. And it's a really easy survey. It's, are you aware of a number of changes in the relationship? There's 7 questions. They're all things that you can always answer, no matter what level of relationship you've continued to have or not. But you're going to be asked to do the survey. The results of that survey are then logged in our system. And as a compliance officer, if there's flags that come on that survey, you get notified. But most of the time, that just gets logged on our system. So it's completely automated. You have a record of it. You can prove to a FINTRAC examiner that you are doing something periodically to review all of your relationships, but it doesn't put an additional burden on the brokerages.
Mhm.
So I think that's a huge piece. And I think, going back to where we started all of this, is the things that I see agents doing wrong and where brokerages are having trouble is around the training piece. And to me, that was really clear over the 4 years of doing FINTRAC forms. That was really why we wanted to develop our Really Trusted Academy, the training course, because I think all of the training that's available for agents around FINTRAC talks in really like big policy things. Effectiveness reviews, policy manuals, things agents don't care about.
Yeah,
And
they're not going to.
They can't relate
Yeah.
to it.
and nor should they. They want to go sell real estate. I want them to go sell real estate. But we need to give them enough training in a way that makes sense for them around what their obligations are under FINTRAC are. And I think just as importantly, why. I get into debates occasionally with realtors around, well, why do we even have to do this? And the why of FINTRAC to me is a no-brainer. If you look at why FINTRAC exists, it's because money laundering exists. And money laundering sounds really clean, but it's not.
No.
It's the fentanyl crisis. It's sex trafficking. It's murder for hire. It's things that as an industry, I think we're all against. I hope we're all against.
But even simple things like renovations.
Sure. But the money for that renovation
Mm-hmm.
might have come
There's
from a
related
drug
to.
transaction.
Mm.
And you're the only person in the world who will have insight into the renovation that was done, you're the only person who will see the difference in value between what they think they've spent, or what they say they've spent, and the change in renovation. The guy who puts in new floors and tells you it costs $100,000, that's wrong, but nobody else will have insight into that. And I know that none of us got into real estate to become detectives,
Yeah.
but I don't think any of us got into real estate hoping to help make our society worse.
Right.
And
That's good.
And I think if you had if all you had to do to help our society a little bit on some of this stuff was pay attention to what you're doing, hey, it's a pretty good win, I think.
Mhm.
So I think I try to, anyhow, going back to Academy and how we answer, or why I think there's a need for it. The course is really about the why and what agents need to know, not what FINTRAC, not from a policy point of view. So it talks about, why do you ask about occupation? And agents don't really understand that. But if they understand that it's actually looking for an economic mismatch between what they say they're doing and what they have, then great. That helps them move forward, complete their forms in a more compliant way without complicating it.
Yeah. No, those are great points, Greg. I'm curious if the platform works any differently when there's a team lead and a team. Because you had mentioned that you've been part of a team as well. Does it change anything?
Not really at this point. We've done a poor job, I would say, to be perfectly honest, of incorporating that side of things into it.
Oh,
We do have the ability to produce forms to an assistant or to administrator as well, and so there's some capabilities in there, but it's not the most elegant of solutions for a team right now. We would encourage. Now, I say that since day one, we have a team option in our settings. So whenever I create a form out of our platform, it has all of our team names stamped on it. So it is compliant from that point of view. It just doesn't allow for sharing of contacts or anything like that, which is where I'd like to get to in a future version. So,
cool.
Yeah.
And so can you share with us a story where there was like a nightmare of maybe like a super stressful audit and a situation where this tool would have been very useful?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most obvious one to me is we've had 3 that I can think of examples that I know of, and I don't track this particularly, where an ID was presented to our system that was quite obviously by our system's metrics fraudulent.
Oh.
And looked fine on picture, but our system said, no, wait a minute, this doesn't work.
That's very interesting.
And so I know of 3 suspicious or I hope they filed, I can't force them to file a suspicious transaction report, but I certainly hope they did, because we reached out to the compliance officer and said, hey, this doesn't look right. And so those to me are nightmarish, because that's the story of you listing the home for somebody who didn't even know their home was going on the market because fraudulent ID was published or was used. And that's like the leading edge of the bad things that come from there. So that's the most obvious one, I think, that hits home for realtors. I think the brokerage examination side of things, the feedback we've been getting from compliance officers going through examinations, we've had a BCFSA audit done on one of our brokerages where the question was, well, where are all of your DORTs for people you didn't end up working?
Oh, interesting.
Good thing we keep those.
Yeah. But the problem a lot of brokerages were having is that they're just not getting a lot of them because
Right.
it sucks for agents to do it. Well, look, I've made it really easy to create a DORT in our system. I DORT everybody. My usual workflow is whenever I set a meeting with somebody is I go through a quick agency spiel and I let my administrator know, and she'll send a DORT out for me through our system. But I've already done the agency spiel. So I'm completely compliant. It's going to get back to my brokerage always, whether the client signs it or not. I don't care, because I've presented the information. They have a copy of it. My brokerage gets a copy of it just through that process.
Great.
I just got asked that question yesterday because I did there was like a phone call with BCFSA, and she was just an auditor, and she's like, where are you storing all your agreements that are not related to an actual transaction? So agreements like referral agreements, exclusive buyers agreements. So yeah, we have to store all of that.
You do.
Well, in our SkySlope system, which is where we manage our contracts, there is really no space for that unless you actually create a transaction.
Yeah.
So now we're, having to create a separate drive just specific to those type of forms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly. It's all of that orphaned stuff becomes really tough because our industry is built on transactions.
Yeah.
And so we do really good at making sure that every tick for a transaction is ticked. But all the stuff for transactions that don't happen, you got to keep a copy. And so for the brokerage who went through that BCFSA audit, they just said, well, no problem. Here's all of our DERPs. And on our back end, you as a compliance or as a brokerage, as an administrator, you can go in and see you can generate a report of all of the whatever type of form for any period of time you want, which is really kind of a cool tool from exposing how many offers were received on a listing. I have that kind of data available to me.
Yeah.
Well, I don't, but in theory, I can have that kind of data available to me. But a brokerage can look at exactly all of the DERPs for any period of time, all of the DORTs for any period of time. It's all stored in our system. So that brokerage went through that audit.
I actually have a question about something that you said, and I just thought of it right now. Did you say, Greg, that so let's say, for example, someone's using Really Trusted, a brokerage is using it. And in the case of the ID, it looked maybe fraudulent or raised flags. Are you guys required to report it separately from the brokerage or no?
No.
Just curious.
Yeah. So it's something we've actually kind of internally debated a bunch. We've taken the view that because we're not a regulated entity, we don't have an obligation to report. And we've taken the view that when we get those kinds of situations, we'll reach out to the compliance officer who would be obligated and in as strong a language as we can suggest that they might want to do something with this information.
I see.
But I think that's the right line to draw because we walk this really careful path of we have an incredible amount of hugely sensitive data, and we disclose what we do with that data, all the clients and consumers who are receiving it. But we still have this obligation that persists that we want to make sure that we tread the right line for people on this. So that's where we felt made the most sense from a legal position point of view, as well as supporting our clients, both our brokerage and our consumers through it.
Yeah.
Okay. As soon as forms are introduced to us, and we know sometimes it's like a very little notice from BCFSA or the real estate board, how soon is it being uploaded into Really Trusted?
Yeah, it depends on the form and the background to the form. So to give you an example, when the rescission period came out, you'll recall that January 3rd was the introductory date.
Yeah.
If you had used our system at 7:30 in the morning, you would have had the updated DORT available to you. If you had used web forms at that time, you would not until about 4:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think we're on it. Actually our rescission tools are pretty cool. There's a really easy rescission calculator in there, both for the date or for the amount. There's a note you can send out a notice of rescission through our system, and we're going to ask for a read receipt on all of that for you.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, right. The read receipt was that pain point that nobody could solve, but that's why we did it. It's not like the most elegant for an agent to rescind, but we're also hoping that tool doesn't get a ton of use.
Yeah.
So we're kind of okay with that. But it generates emails to everybody with read receipts all across the board. But to answer the question on updating forms, at core, what we do is generate forms. So we better be up to date with it. Now, when it comes to new forms that have different workflows, we'll take our time to implement them properly. So going back to this DMOP conversation that we started to have, we had looked at integrating that when the announcement came out a couple of weeks ago. We had thought about doing the work to integrate that into our DERP, and we might still do it at some point. But we weren't sure that we would be able to provide enough value in that workflow to agents to make that interesting right away. I also think that there's some policy work that needs to be done as part of that DMOP. I think, and this is my own personal opinion, I'm not speaking for Really Trusted or anybody else. I think the problem with the DMOP is that it's after the fact, and consumers don't. It's actually two problems. It's after the fact.
Yes.
So consumers
Yeah.
have already made their
Yeah,
decisions.
they already have this belief in their mind.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Okay.
So that's problematic. And then equally problematic is this obligation to provide it within 24 hours when you'll know there's a rescission period. And therefore, these deals aren't firm by definition.
Exactly. It makes no
Mhm.
sense.
So would you say, in your opinion, it should be done before all the offers are presented? So let's just say there's a deadline at 4:00. There's a meeting at 7:00. So is to send it back to those buyer's agents between that time? Or like what's the perfect
Solution
solution or
Yeah.
workflow here?
Well, I funnily enough, or not funnily enough, not surprisingly, probably is the best way to put it. I think technology has a role here. And I think forms aren't the answer to the question.
Yeah.
I think there's a really easy path where, whether it's us or somebody else, that's a whole other conversation, but provides a tool where the offers are handled, an offer handler platform, you might even call it,
Exactly.
where
You can see
You can
how many
see
offers are going in,
exactly.
but
And-
without the details.
In real
Right.
time.
Right.
Mhm.
in real time.
Well, there's your another platform you can design.
We've considered this.
Yeah.
We might do it. It's
Mhm.
we haven't actually gone down that path yet because it creates there's some political problems around
Yes.
who's going to mandate the use.
Mhm.
We would need a board to come on board. Boards have a lot of other things on their radar. Anyhow,
Mhm.
there's a whole bunch of stuff there. But I think that would be a much more elegant solution, both from a consumer point of view, and it would protect the integrity of the data. If I'm a buyer's agent and I have an accepted offer during a rescission period, and I now know exactly who the other offers are,
hmm
you could argue, and I'm not sure I'm ready to advance this argument, but maybe you could argue I have an obligation to go and try to figure out who the other agents were
Mhm.
and see how much more we've paid and
I know.
whether it's worth rescinding or not.
Right.
Sometimes I think that less intervention for certain things is better. I mean,
agree.
it's
Yeah.
important things. Absolutely. There needs to be protocols, but I'm a firm believer in just like, you can't control everything. And sometimes the effects of implementing something without proper thought are that it puts the other party at a disadvantage.
I agree.
Mhm.
I think we've actually come to a point where so much of our policy decisions and our practices and our thinking is based on the seller's market conditions. And that's because for most of the last 2-3 decades, we've been in a seller's market. And so our whole, everything we think about is how do we protect buyers? But we're not always in a seller's market.
No.
Mhm.
And when we make these decisions that unilaterally
Right.
change the weights, push the scale, you put our thumb on the scale on one side, that has repercussions to the transaction that I don't think have been thought through.
Thank you for
necessarily.
saying
Like
that,
the
Greg.
rescission.
We
Yeah.
talk about this all the time in my office too.
Yeah.
And it's something that's not really touched on at all with the regulators or anything. It's like, so then what? You want to penalize somebody for making the decision at a certain point in time to make that investment where technically they want to move on with their life. They should be able to, but you're making it very difficult for them to sell right now, perhaps,
Yeah.
because of the implementation of rules.
Absolutely.
Anyhow, next question. We digress, but
Mhm.
next question. I know you can't speak to the brokerage packages
Yeah.
per se in terms of price point at this time, but how much would the investment look like for a realtor who wanted to use Really Trusted?
It's pretty cheap, I'd like to think. It's $7.99 a month, $7.99.
Oh,
Oh.
that's so. I thought you meant $799.
No, $7.99 a month, or $79.99 for the year. Like, it's not a huge investment of
Oh,
money.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right.
I like it.
And I'll tell you that when a brokerage signs on, it's actually a smaller rate than that per agent.
Really?
So we're not actually,
So do you need a minimum number of agents?
we're basing our brokerage packages on the size of the brokerage. And we've done that because we know that you're only going to get value out of it when all of your agents are using the platform.
Mm,
And we want to encourage you towards that.
Yeah.
And look, you're not going to get there day one. We have something like 70 to 80 brokerages in the country who have mandated the use of Really Trusted. That's the only way they'll accept FinTrack forms now. And there's a whole bunch of really good reasons from a compliance point of view, why they've done that.
mhm.
But we want to, We've therefore based our brokerage pricing on the size. And there are brokerages who bill back their agents a reduced rate from that $7.99 just to kind of cover the costs of it, because there is a cost associated. But we want to help brokerages get to that 100% use without it being a pain point. And that's going back to this push-pull. We've given agents a better workflow. I believe that it makes their lives easier. And so when you go to mandate that, it shouldn't be a huge burden, as long as you don't come in one day and say, hey, this is mandatory tomorrow, which is you're going to, a bunch of independent contractors aren't going to like that too much. But if you can say, hey, look, here's this cool tool. We're going to make it available to you. Learn to use it over the next 6 months, and we're going to bring it in slowly. Then people will get on board with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's been our experience.
What do we have to look forward to? Is there a next generation or a version 2.0 coming out?
Yeah, totally. The next handful of things, and we talked about the corporate ID being part of the next package that's coming out. We're also working on what we're calling our enhanced due diligence bundle.
Ooh.
Sounds fun.
To us, it does.
To a compliance officer, it's fun, totally. And it'll make some of that business relationship monitoring a little more automated for you. So that'll be coming out reasonably soon. And then the next phase for us is on the FinTrack side is we want to make FinTrack as plug and play as we can. So we come in and we bring you a new policy manual, a new procedure manual. Obviously, the compliance officer will be involved in that process, but we want to help you develop the policy and procedure manual, implement the procedures using the app and the training platform that we've built, and then deliver an effectiveness review as part of that bundle. So we want to actually be your full FinTrack guide through the entire process. That's my immediate, that's where we're moving to reasonably quickly. We're pretty close to the policy and procedure manuals already. And I already have a partner in mind for effectiveness reviews. And so we've got a path to doing that really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the cool thing about once we've got that rounded out is then we have a development team that we can do something else that's interesting. And so offer handling might actually be something that's useful and interesting for the industry. That we might just do that. There's a number of other places we might go play in that are interesting, but
that's very exciting.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
We can't wait to see where you end up. It's awesome.
Well, it's also, we want it to be, we want the industry to get value out of it. So if there's something that I hear a bunch of feedback on, then we'll go look at that instead.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Our last question today before we do a fun little game is, how does one get started if they would like to sign up for your platform?
Yeah, super easy. app.reallytrusted.com, app.reallytrusted.com.
Awesome.
On any sort of a browser, go create an account there. We'll walk you through what you need to know. If you're a brokerage who wants to come sign on, if you go to www.reallytrusted.com, you're able to book a meeting right into mine or Jason's calendar. We can go through a demo with you so you can understand the brokerage side of things a little bit better. I've glossed through them a little bit, and get you set up on the brokerage side and get you a quote as well that way. So,
thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to round off this episode with 5 rapid fire questions.
Cool.
I don't know if you have listened to our past podcast, but this is what we do for fun.
All right.
At the very end.
All right.
Okay, so these are super simple. What are you enjoying the most this summer?
The trailer. So my family and I have a trailer down at Black Mountain Ranch, just south of the border. And we, it sounds funny because it's a trailer, right? But it's our cottage. So there's 1,000 trailers at the place, and it's almost all Canadians who are there. There's a pool, there's horses, there's a golf course, there's a mini golf course.
That sounds so fun.
Which city is it? Is it in?
It's near Deming. So it's about 15, 20 minutes south of the Sumas border crossing. So it's a fair ways. It's nowhere near any city, which is kind of the beautiful thing about it. But we have internet and we have power and water. So it's camping, except not really.
Do you have to own there, or can people rent?
No, you have to own.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah. Or know somebody who can put you on their guest list. So
Yeah. Okay.
3 words that best describe you.
Ooh. Well, that's an interesting question. I would say driven, passionate, and honest.
Mm.
Integrity is an important one for me.
What's the best tool, gadget, or toy you've recently purchased or own under $100?
Oh, fun. It's not under $100.
How about 500? Sometimes it's hard. It's under 500.
I know, right? Okay, well, I'll give you the really under 100 is
Okay.
actually easy. It's the telescopic forks for roasting marshmallows.
Oh, yeah, those are so
Those
good.
are-
Those are
sweet.
good.
I
The kids
bought-
would love them. Huh?
Yeah, I bought a bunch of them. All the kids all have one. They were very happy with that.
Nice.
That, yeah.
Okay. Mhm.
What fact about you might surprise another real estate agent that you've just met?
Normally, it's the 4 kids thing that
We
generally.
were just as shocked.
Yeah, exactly. That surprises a lot of people.
If you were not a real estate agent, what career or profession would you be in?
That one's easy. I'd be a lawyer.
Ooh.
When
I could totally see
Yeah,
that.
me too, right?
Yeah. When I got into real estate, actually, I'd been working for the YMCA for a bunch of years as a manager within their systems, and I went to my dad, who is a lawyer, and he's been a lawyer now for 35 years, 40 years, however long it's been. And I said, "Hey, I'm looking for a switch, thinking maybe law." He's like, "Yeah, you should absolutely do this. This is great." And then I went to my best friend, Keith, who I now work with, and I was like, and he was a realtor at the time. He'd been a realtor for 4 or 5 years at that point. I said, "I'm thinking real estate." He said, "No, you're like, this is a terrible business for you. You should not do this. This isn't going to go well for you."
Interesting.
And he was not quite as direct about that. But he said, it's a lot more of a grind than you think it's going to be. And I'm not sure you're ready for that. And so I ignored both of their advices and got into real estate. But quite clearly, the other
That was-
alternative would be law. So.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
It's the right direction that you made.
Absolute last question. Where can our listeners find you?
Yeah. I'm really bad at the social stuff, honestly.
It's okay, Greg. Me too.
Yeah. Okay, good. So probably using either of our websites, either Really Trusted or my real estate teams. There's contact information available for you there. I'm happy to give me a call is probably the best way. I like phones. You can even book a meeting with me directly on the Really Trusted. So I'll show up on Zoom. I'm cool
Mhm.
with all of those things, but the social stuff, I'm just not great at.
No problem.
Awesome.
So
Thank
you're
you.
still really hands-on then. Like you're doing the actual video demos yourself.
Some of them, yeah. If you look at the FinTrack for Real Estate Agents course, that's all me talking
Mhm.
about FinTrack. A lot of our training for our clients now is our director of client experience, Jason, does a lot of that.
Mhm.
But I'm still very much hands-on in the business in both businesses. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well,
Awesome.
you have a good voice. So yeah, keep doing those videos.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much, Greg, for coming on. I learned a lot. And me being a managing broker, where we're very, very serious about ensuring we have the right, even to the point where your identification cannot be expired
Mm.
after if the listing is still valid,
Ah,
like if
okay.
it's still like
Yeah.
running, right? So yeah, we're on top of this. So, but this is a really great tool, and just for $7.99,
Yeah.
you can't beat that.
It seems like a
It's pretty
no-brainer, right?
awesome. Yeah. I thought it was more expensive. So
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on.
thank you, Greg.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you.